everyone, and welcome to a special edition Sox Machine Live as we are streaming on 4th of July in 2022. I am Josh Nelson alongside Jim Margulis as we bring you again this special edition of Sox Machine Live. It makes it a lot easier when you are doing live streams or podcasts, not having a bunch of mortars or fireworks going off in the background. So we are doing this on Monday afternoon before the Chicago White Sox start a very critical homestand.
Also, the dogs that bark at those fireworks.
Yes, also the dogs that bark at the fireworks. As the Chicago White Sox have a pretty critical week of a homestand. They got 3 games against the Minnesota Twins, and they have 4 games at home against the Detroit Tigers, in which the last time the White Sox faced the Tigers, they swept them. So this is a good opportunity for the White Sox to get themselves back into this postseason race. And they did so in a big way this past weekend, Jim. As a bit of a surprise, the Chicago White Sox swept the San Francisco Giants, and they won the first game 1-0 thanks to some Lurie Garcia magic, which we'll get to in a moment. But they did it in very convincing fashion in games 2 and 3 against the Giants. And I have to say, if we were based in San Francisco and we were a Giants machine, I think the only thing we would be discussing out of this series is just how poor San Francisco's defense was over the 3 games and how it gave the White Sox a lot of opportunities. But we're Sox machine. We're White Sox fans. So from a White Sox perspective, isn't it great to watch the White Sox be the team taking advantage of all of these defensive miscues for once?
Yes, we've seen this series before. It's just that the hand is on the other foot. I think that's the Naked Gun line. It's well, I opened the wake-up call actually with an article from the San Francisco Chronicle just talking about like basically removing all the information, who won, who lost, where the game was played, and just going through the adjectives being used. That the defense was gruesome and the offense was non-existent until the 9th inning, and fans who showed up in droves had nothing to cheer for. And that sounded so much like so many White Sox games we've seen earlier this year. And now it was the White Sox coming through. Like it had the same kind of, especially like the first 2 games where the San Francisco pitching was actually pretty good. Just didn't really see, between the extra outs and the lack of offense, they just had nothing really to, no margin for error, no way to absorb those mistakes. And then just by the end of the series, Sunday's game, just the entire ability to prevent runs eroded. And that's, I liken them to the Bears teams of so many seasons, I guess, of which is where the defense kept them in the games until it couldn't, until it physically was not capable. The stamina just gave way, and they were just not able to keep the other team off the board to make the games competitive. And that's what we saw here, except the White Sox were adding on. The White Sox were making use of those extra outs, double play balls that we figured would end innings did not. Third outs turned into 4th outs, and those singles that always came a batter too late earlier in games were a just in time, whether it's Luis Robert or Sevy Zavala on Sunday. So it was very refreshing. I think the only drawback, and I'm not sure if this is on your agenda, is that they did not hit a home run all weekend. And that's something that I think that's the only missing piece in terms of what I would have liked to see. But every other element, all parts of the order contributing, great effort from the pitching staff, good defense, like everything else was in place.
I agree with the concern about not seeing a home run, but it is San Francisco. So it is not a great home run ballpark. I was not expecting to see the White Sox hit a lot of home runs in that series. Was there only 1 home run?
Yes,
the
entire
series?
Teams, yep.
Yeah, and that was the first batter that Dylan Cease faced, and that was the only run the Giants scored was that leadoff homer. That was a bomb by Wade Jr., though. That was straightaway center field. That was a bomb by him.
Yeah, Jock Peterson had that 414-foot double off the right center wall of Giolito on Sunday. But yeah, otherwise, just a lot of fly balls to the right center warning track, especially.
Right. So I was not expecting a lot of home runs. My tune's going to change, though, with this 7-game homestand with the home runs. That is something that we'll talk about later in the show, and that will be a focus as far as the White Sox success or lack of success this upcoming homestand against the Minnesota Twins and Detroit Tigers. But let's talk about the unexpected production. And I will admit, I ride Gavin Sheets hard. I give
Mm-hmm.
him a tough time this season because his production has been lacking. I have been giving Luis Garcia a tough time because before this series, he was the worst active player in Major League Baseball as Christian Pache was optioned to the minor leagues finally. And Sebi Zavala's strikeout rate was so ridiculous in AAA, Jim,
Mm-hmm.
that I was not expecting him to be much of an offensive contributor. And I wanted to see Carlos Perez get these opportunities over Zavala. Well, if you are a Sheet stan, a Lurie Legend fan, and on the bandwagon for Sebi Zavala, you had a good weekend because Gavin Sheets went 3 for 10 with 5 RBIs, and I thought defensively he was pretty strong in right field and impressed me with his throwing arm. Lurie Garcia had the game-winning hit in the first game, and he went 5 for 13 in the series with 2 RBIs and 3 runs scored. And Sebi Zavala went 4 for 9. He's got 3 RBIs. And Jim, Zavala has caught Yasmani Grandal in the RBI category. Now, we haven't seen Grandal hit for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So that simple sentence, if you told me at the beginning of the season that on 4th of July, Josh, that Sebi Zavala would have almost as many RBIs as Yasmani Grandal, my expectation is that Yasmani Grandal has suffered a major injury and he has missed 2.5 months of the season. But that is not the case, as Grandal has had way more plate appearances than Zavala. And Grandal, obviously, we have noted his struggles many a times.
Mm-hmm.
The White Sox scored 19 runs in this series. Those 3 players drove in 10 of those 19 runs. We saw this type of unexpected production last year, especially in May and June, to help keep the White Sox above water, to allow them to really take the lead in the American League Central and run away with the division early. Is this a sign of something to come for these 3 particular players this month?
We should hope so. I mean, Sheets has shown the ability to bounce back from rough stretches and make good use of being optioned and regroup. And, watching him in the batter's box, he's not as, his problems don't stem from a lack of discipline, from swinging at everything. So I think part of the thing that's frustrating about him is that he looks so close to being able to put together productive plate appearances. And when he doesn't, and when he has like a rough month, you don't have any kind of visual cues. Like, say, Luis Robert, he gives us a lot of cues to know whether he's tracking a pitcher well, whether he's, tamed his aggression, and whether he's, bringing pitchers back to an area where he can hit them. So if he's swinging wildly, we know, like, okay, it might take him a few at bats before he gets back on track, or it might be a rough series, that sort of thing. But Sheets, like, he looks under control. It's just the contact went nowhere. He was lucky to get, shank a single to left field here or there, but otherwise hitting ground balls in the shift or fly balls that just not travel. So to see a little bit more exit velocity from him, like, he almost seemed, to go back to that Tony La Russa line about like results, looking at results, like Sheets is one of the cases where you kind of have to look at results because he looks under control otherwise. And if he's not squaring the ball up, if the launch angle, the velocity isn't there, there is something to where like he's not expecting the pitches in the right order, or he's getting fooled by sequencing, something like that, to where like he's just not putting authoritative swings on pitches. So I like seeing him like being able to shoot that double left field against lefty. Like, he should be able to do that. He wasn't that big of a split case in the minors. Like, I still expect him to be mostly a platoon bat, but he should be able to have, that was his first extra base hit against left-handed pitching. There should be a few more of those here and there, to where like, if he starts against a left-handed opener, he should be allowed to surprise in order to balance the lineup later against like a righty who's carrying more of the bulk innings. Like, he shouldn't be, any lefty shouldn't send him scurrying out of the lineup. With Larry, it's tough just because I don't know if you've had this experience, like wrestling in your head. Tony La Russa's answer about like, looking at results and like Garcia being, the second worst hitter and now the first worst hitter. Maybe that was like the case where like, now that he's the worst, he has to pick it up. Like Christian Pache was like giving him cover. He just didn't want to be last in his class. Like, he's okay being second to last, but like, just now that Pache is there, like, okay, I got to get together. But like, I think I reached a piece to where like Garcia's successes here and there aren't going to keep him in the lineup because Tony La Russa is going to keep him in the lineup regardless. Like, your choices are between Larry failing a lot and Larry being up and down, but having some successes that makes La Russa feel vindicated or, extra condescending. So I feel like it's neither choice is satisfying, but at least I'll take the on-field successes and also the fact that Garcia seems like a good teammate. Zavala is the one I'm completely stumped by just because, watching him in Charlotte, like he could hit bad pitching, but not great pitching, and right-handed hitters. Like he feasted on lefties this year, but righties he was not competitive against, and especially righties with an interesting arsenal or like an above average arsenal for AAA. Like he didn't look like he was standing a chance, so that he's like coming up with hits, coming up with singles, even if they're just like dropping into right field, left field. Like he has some variety in his swings that I haven't seen before, to where like he is able to beat shifts or just not be shiftable and open up a little bit more of the field to have more productive plate appearances, even if, he isn't going to have the slugging percentage that he had at Charlotte. So it is possible that these guys can keep doing this, but I am surprised, like between McGuire picking up a little bit here and there and catching well, and Zavala having a nice little run, like I have not heard anything about Grandal's, condition, how close he is. He's traveling with the team. He doesn't seem like he's close to rehab stints. Given that the entire season was a rehab stint for him, like it seems like he's curiously absent from the discussion, the way like Jimenez is very present in the when he comes back discussion. Hendricks, when he comes back. Engel has been seen doing drills. Like Grandal has been, he's been, I guess, conspicuous in how quiet his absence is. And that surprises me.
Well, Eno Sayers of The Athletic, friend of the podcast, he did report, because he was reporting for that series between the Giants and White Sox, that he saw Grandal take batting practice on Friday night in the first game, and that later in that weekend, Grandal is running the bases as fast as he possibly can. So maybe it's not so much running as a light jog around the bases, but he's starting to do some physical activity. What that suggests as far as his timeline, as you pointed out, Jim, we have no idea. Grandal, there's no clarity. Aaron Bummer might be dead for all we know.
Yeah, at least we know he had a setback.
Right.
at least something, even if it's bad news. Like I'm surprised that like maybe Grandal is just so rough, or his flaws are pronounced enough that he can be made up for, especially like when he just doesn't have that lower body power to generate the home runs that he did last year in quick succession.
Well, we are streaming live on our YouTube page at youtube.com/Sox Machine. So for our podcast listeners, if you listen to this later, Rick Hahn, I am expecting him to speak with the media because it does start off this homestand. So maybe we'll get more clarity in the upcoming hours from Rick Hahn about Yasmani Grandal's current injury situation and what his timetable is to return to the White Sox. But, again, just looking as far as the stats, like Seby Zavala, the strikeouts are still an issue. He's got 17 strikeouts in 16 games this year to only 2 walks. So he's not going to walk a lot. And we know that he's going to swing and whiff a lot, again, with that strikeout rate. But Seby Zavala's got 6 doubles, Jim, and 1 home run. He has as many extra base hits as Yohan Moncada, who has 4 doubles and 3 homers. Zavala's hitting .313 with a .500 slugging percentage. So he's got 11 RBIs in 16 games, where Yasmani Grandal has 15 RBIs in 50 games. And Reese McGuire only has 10 RBIs in 45 games. But we knew that Reese McGuire was more of a defensive backup to Yasmani Grandal. We were not expecting a lot offensively from Reese McGuire. But here's Seby Zavala getting a second opportunity. We've seen him surprise us last year with a 3 home run game. And here he is again for the White Sox, putting up good offensive numbers. And Lucas Giolito, which California did wonders for him in this road trip, really improved. He gave Seby Zavala a lot of credit as far as the pitch sequence for Giolito's successful start in Game 3 of that series against the San Francisco Giants. So Seby Zavala has been playing a lot better. Gavin Sheets is playing a lot better. And whether you like it or not, as Jim mentioned, Lurie Garcia is going to be playing. Is it going to be a lot better? We'll see. It's Lurie Garcia. We know Lurie. He has good series sometimes, and then we won't see him for another month. But fingers crossed that all 3 of them continue this type of production. And the top of the lineup of Tim Anderson, Andrew Vaughn, Luis Robert, and Jose Abreu, they get hot this week. And then that would really help carry the White Sox through the week. One more shout out, Tanner Banks, Jim. Tanner
Mm-hmm.
Banks really helped out the White Sox, pitching some big innings for the Sox in this weekend series. Right now, I believe he's the only left-handed reliever that Tony La Russa has, and he's not necessarily a left-handed killer that you would think of like all of the loogies in Major League Baseball. And we mentioned Aaron Bummer that he had a setback. So the White Sox really don't have a lot of options from the left-hand side in the bullpen. And I took a look at the trade market for left-handed relievers, because if you want the White Sox to add, this is an area that I think they should search for to help out Tanner Banks to get Tony La Russa another left-handed reliever. When you look at free agent relievers next season, the market is non-existent.
Mm-hmm.
So going to 2023 free agents, so you would have an extra year control, it would require more prospects or a higher level of prospect to make that trade. And it's like Andrew Chafin with Detroit, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's your left-handed trade market right now. So it's going to be really tough for the White Sox to find help for Tanner Banks. But he had a really bad spell in May, and he got sent back down to Charlotte, and now here he is again with the White Sox. And are we going to see more Tanner Banks in these critical situations in the 6th and 7th inning where he's going to get the ball and there's a bunch of lefties coming up? The White Sox fans are going to have to hope that Tanner Banks holds it down.
Yeah, I think with Banks, there was a little bit of a period in May where his stuff flattened out a little bit. Like he was hitting 92 instead of 94 in short doses. So perhaps that stretch that he had was, I guess partial regression because he got off to such a great start, but also just might have been like a little bit of dead arm or something that effect of just his stuff being diminished a little bit, and he does not have the margin for error to get by. But in this case, like the stuff has looked a little bit livelier as of late, and really he's the only choice. And I think, La Russa's going through a lot of different options. We saw Lopez, we've seen Lambert, we've seen Banks. When he doesn't want to use Graveman and Joe Kelly, like the floor is open. And I think Banks, with handedness concerns, like he just happened to be the guy getting called upon, and sometimes that's a way to carve out a niche. I would be worried about just going to that well too often. I think I don't know if there's going to be a hot hand here to where like you feel like, one, we saw it with Lopez, like where one outing is going to be instructive for ones that are going to come later. I think you have to go handedness and then, maybe environment like ballpark conditions, home run proneness in order to, try to limit the damage like one swing can do, like figure out who's better for that against a certain sequence in a lineup. But I think the good news is like Liam Hendricks is supposed to come back, and that'll free up Graveman and Kelly for more of those outings to, allow Banks to not have to do this and not, I guess like have a Peter Principle thing where you run out guys until they hit a wall and then they disappoint and then you feel like they can't do anything. I'm surprised in Charlotte, like Zach Muckenhirn, he's a lefty. He's like one of the few relievers actually performing in Charlotte. You have Yohan Ibar, you have Parker Markle, you have Anderson Severino, all these guys having really rough stretches. Muckenhirn's been getting it done all year. And it seems like if they want to call up a lefty who isn't Bennett Sousa, and Sousa shouldn't be a factor into any kind of immediate plans, like Muckenhirn, I think would be the guy if they want another lefty. And he would be somebody, I think, he's not going to be a lefty killer, but he's at least shown enough in a tough environment to get a look if they really need somebody to, not have Tanner Banks be the guy who faces every lefty, every series, twice a series. And you have to roll with, the risks of him being overexposed when he's really just more of a bulk guy.
Yeah, because this may be a factor in the remaining of the season where we could see teams duplicate what the San Francisco Giants did against Dylan Cease, is put 7 left-handers in the lineup to face Cease. So in those types of starts, we may see Tanner Banks for that advantage or try to get rid of the opposing team's platoon advantage going lefty versus lefty. But right now the White Sox just have Tanner Banks. If you're hoping that the White Sox add another left-handed reliever during the trading season that is rapidly approaching for Major League Baseball, there's not many options, if any options at all. So we would have to start looking at which right-handed relievers the White Sox could possibly add that have good platoon splits, especially against lefties, such as Joe Kelly. that we've mentioned many times throughout this season. Calling someone up from Charlotte is not a bad idea to give someone another opportunity. We just know that Bennett Sousa is not very successful in that role. Anderson Severino doesn't throw enough strikes. So I am game, Jim, for a new face to help out Tanner Banks. But as long as Tanner Banks continues to throw well, I think we'll start seeing him more often from Tony La Russa out of the bullpen, and just fingers crossed we don't have a duplication of what happened in early May, and that Banks is able to keep the team at bay in his appearances.
Yeah, we got a question from David in the chat asking if a lack of left-handed starting pitching will be an issue for the Sox down the stretch or potentially in the playoffs. And I don't think necessarily starting, but I do think, between an already rotation and a basically already bullpen, it would be nice to have a little bit of variety. I think the Sox righties are good enough. I think Lance Lynn versus Houston aside, I think that's really, one of the problems last year with just how the rotation lined up against an Astros team that was good enough to take down what the White Sox are doing pitching wise. I think that maybe made it a little bit hard to trust what the White Sox have starting wise, but I think their pitching is good enough. Right now, 1 through 5 to mix and match, and the righties are good enough against lefties. They have enough variety in their offerings to not get hammered against lefties. But yeah, it would be nice just to have somebody, anybody, especially if Aaron Bummer were able to come back and, to use that Rick Hahn line, be the equivalent of a trade acquisition by being his old self. Like, that would be such a big help. You can't count on it. And even if Bummer came back, they'd probably need somebody who used to be in the Garrett Crochet role before Crochet got hurt, just to have the depth. But I think Aaron Bummer coming back could be, I guess now, as you mentioned, with the lack of trade targets, and even then, like we've seen the White Sox struggle to import relievers from, one high leverage situation for one team to another. But having Bummer come back would be such a boost to this team, just to provide that versatility, the variety against teams that might try to line up well against them later in games.
For the Chicago White Sox, let's now preview their upcoming homestand, and it is a critical one, as the Chicago White Sox will start 3 games against the Minnesota Twins Monday through Wednesday, and then they have a 4-game home series against the Detroit Tigers. This is a great opportunity for a White Sox team that's 38-39. Here we go again, Jim. We just had this conversation a couple weeks ago for the last homestand, to get at 500 or be above 500, and we don't have to worry about the White Sox being below 500 for the rest of the season. This is another opportunity. The White Sox failed that opportunity when they won the series against the Blue Jays and then proceeded to lose 3 out of 4 to the Baltimore Orioles. For the Minnesota Twins, setting the stage, they are 45-37. They are first place in the American League Central, as we do take a look at the American League Central standings on the web stream on youtube.com/Sox Machine. And yes, the Minnesota Twins again are 8 games above 500, and they currently have a 2-game lead over the Cleveland Guardians, which the Guardians had a tough series against the New York Yankees. Everyone's having a tough time against the Yankees this year. Cleveland lost 2 out of 3 against the Yankees. They are 40-36. They're 1.5 games back of Tampa for the final postseason spot. And there are the White Sox, 38-39. They're 4.5 games back of the Minnesota Twins, as they get 1 game back, as the Twins lost that series finale to the Baltimore Orioles, and the White Sox are 4 games back of the Tampa Bay Rays. The Twins have won 6 of their last 4 games, and that Baltimore series, they did win that series, Jim. But boy, Baltimore gave them a tough time. The 2 wins for the Minnesota Twins required to be walk-off wins for the Minnesota Twins. It was really close to almost saying, thank you, Baltimore, for sweeping the Minnesota Twins in Minneapolis. That Orioles team's playing some really good baseball, so maybe it helps lessen the stain a bit. Probably not. Of the White Sox, we've seen 3 out of 4 to the Baltimore Orioles at home in their last homestand. Your pitching probables for this series, and starting on 4th of July, it's going to be Johnny Cueto. This is Paul Konerko bobblehead day for those attending the games. The gates will open at 5:40 p.m. Central Time. Michael Kopech will be starting on Tuesday night, and then Wednesday, getaway day for the Minnesota Twins. Lance Lynn will be on the mound for the Chicago White Sox. For the Minnesota Twins, it's Dylan Bundy on Monday, Chris Archer on Tuesday, and then Joe Ryan, who's been very good for the Minnesota Twins this year, will make the start on Wednesday. All right, Jim, that's setting the stage for this series. And let's just go with the overall general theme, because for White Sox fans, especially on Twitter, and coming off sweeping the San Francisco Giants, I think there's a lot of enthusiasm now for this series. If the White Sox were swept by the Giants, it may feel like a funeral at Guarantee Rate Field for these upcoming 3 games. But now White Sox fans have hope after a really good weekend in San Francisco. How important is this series for the White Sox season?
It's, I've seen, in the conversation, in the replies to your tweet, just surveying what people were expecting, what they thought. I saw a lot of, kind of sentiment saying that if they lose 2 out of 3 or get swept, like it's a failure, like the season's, could be over. I don't think it's that. Like, I'm very careful about using the phrase must win because, technically, must wins don't arrive until, for a contending team until like September. Like, just, you can always come back. I don't want to go to that well too often, but I think emotionally it's a big series. Like, fans, want to like this team. They want to be able to trust something, anything. Like, this team is a little bit like Gordon Beckham's career. Like, every time you think he's turned the corner, like sometimes you turn a corner, but if you turn a corner 4 times, you're back where you ended up. And that's kind of where the White Sox have gone this season. Like, anytime they win a series, they lose, the next 2. It just 2 steps forward, 2.5 steps back. And it's this series, we've seen the defense undermine the White Sox, and that seemed like uncharacteristic. How, we know they're not going to be a good defensive team, but the ugly defense seemed a little bit just out of hand. And now that's been tightened up. We've seen the pitching rebound. We've seen the starting pitching, 1 through 5, pretty solid. Some bumps here and there, but when you compare it to what the rest of the league's 1 through 5 looks like, they're fine. They're enviable. I think they're in an enviable position compared to most other teams. I think the Twins would trade places with what the White Sox have. Bullpen is up and down, but okay. Really comes down to the offense. And I think this is going to be kind of a fascinating series just because Wes Johnson, Twins pitching coach, left for LSU. He left last Thursday. So when you look at their pitchers, like we've seen, especially Chris Archer, he's been on such a specific usage plan, like 2 times through 4 to 5 innings, turning over the bullpen. We've seen the Twins bullpen start to take on water. Joe Ryan is a case where he's, I think, earning a longer leash. And so he might not be as susceptible to short hooks, but he was that guy before. Dylan Bundy is somebody who I think Twins have been worried about trying to get too deep into games with him and wanting to, take a win whenever he's provided 1 through 5 innings. Like, I think the Wes Johnson game plan was oriented around not exposing the starters too much, but now with the bullpen looking rocky, it looks like there are going to have to be some sacrifices made with their starting pitching plan. And I think it's incumbent on the White Sox offense to expose that, if they have to go beyond their comfort zone with Archer, show them why they're uncomfortable doing so. Same thing with Ryan, same thing with Bundy. Like, Bundy shut them down for 5 innings the last time they met in April at Target Field. Like, the offense needs to show more, and the offense needs to make, is it Pete Mackey? I think their new pitching coach now, or bullpen coach. I think his first name's Pete. They have to just make him and the rest of their pitching apparatus sweat a little bit more, because I think they had a sensible pitching plan, but it was delicate, especially with like Maeda being out, over not being, as durable as they'd hope, to where like, the innings are hard to come by. And we've seen, some late game failures, especially against the Guardians, and they were able to get back against the Orioles with some late game strikes themselves. But I think the offense needs to step up here. The offense needs to make it sloppy for the Twins and disrupt their best laid plans, because I think right now, with the way, with when they're catching them, this is not the most comfortable place for the Twins.
Looking from the White Sox, so we know the offense is going to be important. I think shutting down the Twins offense will also be just equally as important for the White Sox. The Twins did not score a lot of runs against the Baltimore Orioles. So I am hoping the White Sox with better pitching can do the same against the Minnesota Twins. My concern is that if the Twins jump out early, especially in Monday's start against Johnny Cueto, that could maybe set the tone for not just that game, but maybe for the entire series. We know that Johnny Cueto, if you're going to get to Johnny Cueto, you're going to get to him early. And you're going to get to him early in the first 30, 40 pitches of the game. Can Johnny Cueto avoid early trouble Monday night against the Minnesota Twins, Jim?
I think so. Like, I want to say when you look at the Twins offense, it's been a little bit sketchy as of late. They have some guys who are some swing and miss cases, but I think, when it comes to the offense, it's really about like Buxton, Arias, Correa, and then the rest can be managed, I think, to some degree, or if they beat you, then, fine. Like, I guess, Urshela has, he's made some big plays, some big contributions here and there. Like the rest of the lineup's not negligible, but I think they have a dangerous portion of their lineup that I think just you need to try to like avoid walks to like the 9-hitter when the rest of the lineup comes around, when the heart of the lineup comes around. So I think Cueto's pretty good at managing. Like, I think when it comes to like the inexplicable walks, I think Giolito got burned by the inexplicable walks. And I think, Cease has had those moments before. Kopech's had those moments. But I think, Cueto, for better or for worse, his problems come with hittable strikes. And like, he tends to, I think his mistakes come inside the strike zone. And then like he fine-tunes his command to work out. Whereas we've seen with other pitchers, like Kopech, especially early on, he walks guys early, then hones his command late. Like his problems are outside, and then he eventually, gets a handle on his command inward. I think Cueto's problem, he goes inward out. Like his mistakes are inside, and then they eventually expand to where they're acceptable mistakes. So I think that's really my concern. But I think, if you're looking for, to manage a lineup, I think he's better than others at managing, attacking hitters who need to be attacked, and then, when the damage is done, like we saw that with the 3 homers, they're all solo shots. I think if you can keep them, if you can mitigate the damage to where like any big hits from the big bats are with nobody on, I think the White Sox can overcome what they do.
So that's Johnny Cueto. Later in this series on Getaway Day, Lance Lynn is going to be making that third start. And maybe the series, as far as the outcome of that series, will be on the line when Lance Lynn does make that start. Lance Lynn posted a scoreless outing and helped the White Sox shut out the San Francisco Giants in San Francisco to start off that 3-game series. Can Lynn follow that up? From what you saw in San Francisco, Jim, is Lance Lynn fully back after 2 starts where, from my perspective, he was still trying to get his footing and break off a lot of rust facing major league hitters?
I think he's close. I think, maybe you'd want to see like a tick more velocity, but in terms of working all 4 quadrants and outside those quadrants, like off the plate, getting chases, getting bad contact, like that ability was there. And I'm looking at like a guy like Buxton and trying to just, manage his explosive bat. Like when you look at, he's got such a weird, line. Like when you look at, he's hitting the low 200s, but he's slugging over 500. The ISO is insane. He's got one of those, we talked about before, like, how I just don't like when a hitter has like, or I prefer like when a home run hitter has like 3 RBIs or 4 RBIs to every homer. I think it looks aesthetically pleasing. Mm-hmm. Buxton has one of those really ugly lines where he's got 38 RBIs to 21 homers, just like the Adam Dunn, Joey Gallo type thing. Just, he has that kind of insane bat speed. We saw him walk off Liam Hendricks, and, managing that, I think a guy like Lynn, with the way he was throwing against San Francisco, can do that, because like Buxton is great at centering stuff up, especially like middle up, middle down. Like he can cover height, but the inside, outside, off the plate, like he doesn't have that insane hitting zone that I think, like a guy like Jose Ramirez, I think, they both are dangerous hitters, but like a guy like Ramirez is dangerous because he can cover so much. Whereas like Buxton, his danger is more limited because like, if you make a mistake, he'll beat the bejesus out of it. But I think if you keep him outside, if you keep him like on the corners or just off, you can get him to expand and chase and get himself into trouble, swing and miss, that sort of thing. So I think Lynn, the improvements I like seeing from, the Giants start is it didn't seem like the swings he was getting on fringe pitches, I think are characteristic of the swings he gets when he's on his game. He's a guy who's hard to tell just because he's not overpowering. If you drop in like over the course of a season and see him start 3 or 4 games, you don't understand what the big deal is. He just, I guess he's kind of like in and out burger. Like I don't really, when I the times I tried in and out burger on the West Coast, I wasn't that impressed, or I didn't get why it was such a big deal. Like, why do people love this place? Like, it's a good burger, but it's fine. But people say the consistency is what's important, and every location is the same, everything's fresh, and it's great. And that's kind of what Lynn reminds me of. He's like, he doesn't blow you away in terms of, you're looking for like a pyrotechnic display of velocity and break and ugly swings, and like Chris Sale, like getting hit by pitches you swing at. Like, he doesn't do that. He just gets these ineffective swings on pitches that are up, down, off the plate, below the zone, just above the letters, that sort of thing. And I think that's the kind of start we saw against San Francisco. And I think if he does that, that's the kind of way you can make Buxton a lot less dangerous.
I did not know you were not that big of a in and out stan.
It's
I
fine.
learned something today.
I think I would have been more impressed by it before, like the wave of Five Guys better burger chains.
Mm-hmm.
Now I think like you can find a good burger anywhere. Whereas like when it was like Wendy's, Burger King, McDonald's and such, I imagine In-N-Out was a lot more of a godsend.
Yeah, that's true. Again, I'm a Culver's guy, but everybody knows that. You mentioned Byron Buxton and what's the best way to deal with Buxton during this series. The Minnesota Twins have been careful with his playing time, but I've got a feeling in this 3 games against the White Sox, the Twins are going to let him play all 3 games against the White Sox. I would be surprised, and it would be very beneficial if Rocco Baldelli, the Twins manager, does sit Buxton for any of these 3 games. Maybe he does for the Wednesday getaway day. But you mentioned, as far as it's not so much the height, it's inside outside against Buxton. I'm imagining, Jim, at some point in this series, it's going to be a close game. Maybe the game is on the line and Byron Buxton is facing Liam Hendricks in the 8th or 9th inning, or another White Sox reliever. How do you want the White Sox to work against Buxton? Is this a similar situation where we get really uneasy when it's Jose Ramirez coming up to the plate with the game on the line?
Well, I think the walk-off is fresh in our heads, partially because, such a damaging hit at that point of the season, but also because, like, I don't know if you, on MLB TV, those who watch it, like, that's now a baseball Zen highlight is Buxton's walk-off, which, I guess side tangent here. Like, I like the baseball Zen feature when it was like, watching the grounds crew rake the infield, or the chalk being displaced, or opening day balloons, that sort of thing. But now that's highlights, like, that's not Zen, like walk-off homers and, people going nuts. Like, that's, I think they've lost the thread on what that's all about. Maybe that's just because I'm watching, Byron Buxton walk-off Liam Hendricks, a couple times a game. But I think in that walk-off, like, it was a case where I think it was a 3-1 count and Buxton could sit fastball. No matter how good Liam Hendricks' fastball is, if you know what's coming, he can load up. Like, Buxton can damage a fastball as well as anybody, even if it's up in the zone. So I think it's really a matter of like being able to throw sliders when he's not expecting it. Because I mean, like, he can damage sliders, he can damage changeups, like he can do everything. But I think it's more of a matter of like, just don't throw him that fastball in a fastball count, especially like when one swing can end it, or one swing can flip the script. Like, first, they could have walked him. Like, the walk wasn't the worst outcome. So that's what was so irritating about that pitch choice, the decision to pitch to him at all. And I think, if there's a case where they have to pitch to him, then so be it. You've dug your own grave. That's baseball. You have to overcome certain challenges and obstacles over the course of the game. But if they don't have to pitch to him, if the ability to pitch around him or walk him is available, then I would like to see him being bombarded with sliders, with changeups, depending on whose better pitch is available at a time. I just don't want to see that fastball in a fastball count, because that was a bad, talking about Tony La Russa, and he doesn't look at results. Like, 3-1 fastball to Byron Buxton with the ability to walk him is a bad choice that got a bad result.
Yeah. Yes, it did. And hopefully the White Sox do a much better job against Byron Buxton in this series. Again, he's their best player right now, and he's the one that has hurt the White Sox in the past, continues to hurt the White Sox in the present. And the White Sox are going to have to deal with Byron Buxton as, again, he signed that 7-year contract with the Minnesota Twins, and he's playing really good baseball this season for the Twins. All right, the series difference maker. What do you think is going to be one of the key factors to determine if the White Sox win this series or lose this series, Jim?
Well, to go back to an answer I tipped earlier, home runs. The
Yeah.
ability to put the ball over the fence, to not be out homered. Maybe you can get by with being out homered if it's like 5-4 or something like that. And the solo that comes down to whether it's solo shots or guys on base. But to continue to if that disparity between home and road, home homers between the White Sox and the visiting teams, if that disparity continues to grow, it's hard to see how they get traction in the Central unless they just get very lucky with sequencing. And I think, we've seen that with the White Sox this year and their inability to get over 500, that sequencing, especially with the lineup that has a few good hitters, but the back half of the lineup is guys who have been scuffling and or hurt. It's really hard to count on that paper cut offense.
Yeah, the weather. So there is going to be some rain that's coming through the Chicago area around 5:00 today. It should not be threatening first pitch for the White Sox. And you're getting a little bit of a heat wave coming into Chicago for a couple of days. The temperature is going to be at 86 degrees. So we always hear about wait until it gets warm in Chicago. It's going to be warm on Monday. Tuesday, the high could be 99 degrees, Jim, in Chicago. So theoretically, the ball should be flying out of the ballpark on Tuesday for both teams with how hot it is. And then Wednesday, you have a cold front coming in. We could see a delay on Wednesday. That could be a later game than the 1:00 game, or there is a risk of it being washed out as the temperature will be 77 degrees. So a pretty significant drop off temperature wise in the Chicagoland area going from Tuesday to Wednesday. But we always hear, and they keep saying, just wait until it's warm. Well, it's going to be warm in Chicago. The expectation that I have with the home runs is that I want to see at least 4 home runs hit by the White Sox this series. I think that they have the potential to hit more, but just the way that we haven't seen a lot of home run power from this team, I would be content if they hit 4 in this series. Is that enough home runs to win this series against the Twins?
It could be. Like, I think once you get to 4, then it becomes a matter of like, how many can the White Sox prevent? So I think that's a good number.
Yeah, because
if they get out homered like 7-4, that's not the offense's problem.
Yeah, that's that's another problem. Well, I mean, it could be the offense's problem in the sense of, well, the Twins are hitting 7 homers. Where are your home runs?
Yeah.
But that would be a pitching problem if the pitchers allow 7 home runs against the Minnesota Twins. I find this to be a pretty fascinating series at a fascinating time for the Chicago White Sox after they had a losing month in June and they had a losing month in April, but they had a winning month in May. So this is going to be an every other type of month to start the season. The White Sox really need a winning month in the month of July, and they're off to, again, a very good start this month, sweeping the San Francisco Giants. And now it's time for the series prediction in a special edition of Sox Machine Live. And Jim alluded to it earlier, but I did post a poll on Twitter, which you can follow us on Twitter at Sox Machine. You can follow me on Twitter at SoxMachine_Josh. How many games will the White Sox win this series against the Minnesota Twins? We had 419 of our followers vote, and 52.7% said that the White Sox will win this series. They'll win at least 2 out of 3. 21% have the White Sox sweeping. I think that would be great. That's very optimistic, with 19% believing the White Sox would just win 1 game. And then the 6.7% of my followers who are either really dour about the White Sox or they are Minnesota Twins fans pick the White Sox will not win any games in this series. Jim, how are you feeling about this series? Is this something that the White Sox can win at least 2 out of 3?
I think so. Like, when it comes to 2 out of 3, it's not so much a knock on the Twins or anything they're doing wrong, how they're playing. It's more a reflection of like what we should expect from the White Sox, and having been swept by the Twins early in the year, they should be able to even the ledger or, come close,
Mhm.
put a dent in it. They're playing well. They have good pitchers lined up. They have certain pitchers rested. Liam Hendricks coming back to relieve Kendall Graveman and Joe Kelly, who got a much needed day off in the finale. So, things are lining up. Guys are getting healthy. Guys are producing. There are some upswings, like you mentioned. So, if not now, then when is kind of my attitude. And, that's not necessarily enough. As we talked about, like if the Twins blitz them with homers and the White Sox still don't have the ability, maybe win is going to be really hard to come by. But based on who they have available and how it's lining up, and as you mentioned, the weather too warming up, the excuses are getting thinner. So it's just more of a matter of whether they're good enough and whether the talent they have on hand can counter the talent that the Twins roll out there. So 2 out of 3 feels fair without, I don't think it's homery to say it's 2 out of 3, just more of a matter of if these teams are evenly matched or if the White Sox should overtake them, this is how you start going about doing it.
Yeah, and in the amount of games both teams have before heading into the All-Star break. So the White Sox and Guardians are going to play 15 games between now and the All-Star break. The Twins are just going to play 12, which is a bit odd as far as the scheduling. The Twins have 7 games against the White Sox, and they have 3 games against the Rangers, who've been playing better baseball of late. And then they have 2 games against the Milwaukee Brewers. So there is a chance here where the Minnesota Twins could maybe be 500 during that 12-game stretch. They go 6-6 before the All-Star break. They're still 8 games above 500 when everybody arrives to Los Angeles for All-Star game festivities. For the White Sox, their next 15 games, 7 against the Twins, 4 against the Tigers, 4 versus the Guardians. This is a pretty critical stretch for the Chicago White Sox because you're not winning the American League Central with a losing record in your division, and you're not going to win the American League Central with a home record that's also losing and that you're below 500. The White Sox have to play better at home. They have to hit better at home if they're really going to get themselves back into the postseason race. So I feel like if they can win 2 out of 3, that keeps the momentum going to the weekend series. And we know how well the White Sox can play against the Detroit Tigers. We know how poorly the Detroit Tigers can play against the White Sox, that maybe after next weekend, Jim, the White Sox are finally above 500. We don't have to worry about them being below 500. Now, I mentioned the Tigers.
Mm-hmm.
The Guardians' next 15 games, they got 8 against the Tigers. They have that 4-game series against the White Sox, and the other 3 games are against the Royals. I feel like the Guardians have a prime opportunity in the next 15 games, Jim, to go on a run.
Yeah, it's a case where, we know the White Sox have the easiest schedule, but part of the reason they have the easiest schedule is because they play the Tigers and Royals a lot, and so do the Twins and Guardians. So I think that's really that's why that schedule thing is smaller solace than you would like to think. But we got a fun question from Dave in the chat asking, who is the biggest Twins villain now that Donaldson is gone? And I was looking at their lineup, and Buxton's there, but I mean Buxton's a villain because he's good. Like in terms of just
on the same level as Jose Ramirez. We don't hate Jose Ramirez. I don't hate Byron Buxton, but you're right, Jim. He's the villain because he's their hero.
Yeah. Same thing with Arias. He's annoying to watch because he makes good contact, but he's not dislikable. In terms of just, there's nothing, the way he carries about, the way he goes about the game. I like watching him play left field sometimes because he's not a good outfielder. So he's got that going for him. So I'm looking up and down the rosters, and I think, the pitching staff is more or less nondescript except for Tyler Duffy. I always remember him as being the guy who got annoyed that Tim Anderson kind of backpedaled out of the batter's box, and he started the whole Anderson getting plunking thing. And he's the that CC Sabathia called him weird ass Tyler Duffy. And that always comes to mind. I always want to see the White Sox smear him. And so that's kind of, I think right now, he's the guy who I just like seeing on-field misfortune befall him. So I think I'm going with him, but he's just a reliever, kind of medium leverage. So it's not as satisfying as seeing Donaldson fail 3 or 4 times a game.
We did get one comment that people will say Carlos Correa because of the Houston Astros. I think that's also a good option as well.
Yeah, it's just now that he's not on the Astros anymore, it's not as And also, he's not going to be, he's going to opt out after the year. Like, he's just not really a fixture. Like, so I don't really associate him with the Twins so much. I don't know, but maybe the series will change my mind.
People don't forget, Jim.
Yeah.
I mean, Donald,
I hold it against them like individually, but I just, in terms of like Twins villain, yeah, and incorporating like Twins history, not so much.
That's true. So Tyler Duffy it is. I'm still surprised he's with the Twins. But maybe we'll see Duffy versus Anderson in this series, and hopefully Anderson has another big moment against Tyler Duffy. But that will do it for this episode of Sox Machine Live, our special edition episode on 4th of July. Thank you to everyone that watched the live stream, which again, you can do so on our YouTube page at youtube.com/Sox Machine. And don't forget, as we talk about the Minnesota Twins, next time the White Sox do face the Minnesota Twins, we'll be in Minneapolis. And there are many White Sox fans that are be heading up to Minneapolis as along with us and our friends from the 108, we are hosting a road trip. We are hosting a pregame party on Saturday, July 16th. We still have tickets available. We are approaching capacity. The capacity is 150 people, and we have sold a little more than 100 tickets so far. If you are interested in going and pre-gaming with us for the Saturday, July 16th game, the party starts at 10:30 in the morning at North Loop Galley, just a short walk away from Target Field. It's $30 per person. Out of that $30, you get 3 drink tickets. So 3 beers will come with you on that $30. You get to hang out with other White Sox fans at North Loop Galley before the White Sox take on the Minnesota Twins in Minneapolis. You can purchase your tickets on SoxMachine.com. If you just discovered Sox Machine or the Sox Machine podcast, again, you can follow us on Twitter. We're at Sox Machine. And if you don't get an opportunity to watch the live streams or watch the videos on our YouTube page, you can listen to the audio versions of every Sox Machine Live that are uploaded into our podcast feed, such as Spotify and Apple Music. And you can help support us at patreon.com/Sox Machine, where our Patreon supporters, they get more. They get exclusive content. They get ad-free versions of both the podcast and website. And when we have new Sox Machine swag, they're the first ones to obtain it. We have monthly plans starting at $2, and you can save with an annual subscription. Again, you can sign up at patreon.com/Sox Machine. Sox Machine Live is a production of SoxMachine.com, your home for all things Chicago White Sox baseball, and part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. Alongside Jim Margulis, I'm Josh Nelson. Thanks for watching and listening.